Township Board of Trustees all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Barry, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Kersten.
Here.
Treasurer Elliott.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee DeMink.
Here.
Trustee Vosberg. Here. Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Clerk Barry is here.
Thank you. Item 4, approval of agenda. Clerk Barry, would you please?
Item 4 is approval of the agenda with addendum if necessary.
All those in favor? Sorry.
Second.
Motion by Trustee DeMink, second by Clerk Barry. Approve the agenda with, as stated. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 5, presentations. I have none. Department heads? None noted, no presentations. We'll move on to item 6, department reports. Department heads? Any department reports? Seeing none, items, I'm sorry. Trustee DeMink, I'm sorry.
I've got stuff from Leisure Services, Mr. Supervisor.
Please, sir.
From Leisure Services, groundbreaking has begun. Construction is underway on Chesterfield's Senior Park. Senior citizens will be able to experience the outdoors in an area they can call their own. Safe outdoor programming is set to become a reality with this innovative growth of space. Phase 1 of this project includes concrete, fencing, entrance sign, green space, and exercise equipment. A covered pavilion will be added in 2022. Please keep an eye on the progress and learn more about our senior officers' offerings by visiting the Senior Center or liking us on Facebook. The project has been made possible through the support of the Chesterfield Township Board and a competitive CDBG funding opportunity. Next, pickleball fans, from sunrise to sunset, the redesigned resurfaced sports courts are now open at Brandenburg. Come play with us and enjoy the sun, sport, and lakefront breezes. 3 newly designed pickleball courts, 1 hybrid court, and 4 basketball hoops are awaiting your arrival. The summer concert series is finally here. Help us welcome the Meldrum Brothers for some rock and country on Friday, July 30th at the Township Municipal Offices at 6:30 p.m. We appreciate the generous support of the Township Board and our presenting sponsor, Genesis Credit Union. Their contributions are what make cost-free community concerts possible. And finally, registration for the Chesterfield Township's Fall Frenzy Baseball League is now available. Co-ed, T-ball, pitching machine, minor and major baseball leagues are available for boys and girls ages 5 to 12. This fall league happens fast, is fun, and is a great way to introduce the kids to the sport. The seasoned athlete gains some outdoor conditioning in an encouraging learning environment where fundamentals are built and skills can be enhanced. Registrations accepted in person or online at Chesterfield Parks. Parks.chesterfieldtownship.org. I'll get it right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Trustee DeMink. Clerk Barry?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'd like to begin my report from the clerk's office. As many of you know, the clerk is the custodian of all township records, and as such, we are aware of many of the personnel matters, and it's come to my attention today that one of our employees here at the board table has a birthday today, and so I'd like to be the first one to wish a happy birthday to Trustee Joseph, who is here on his birthday, and he shares a birthday with my mom. So I know he knows that. So happy birthday, Trustee Joseph and Mom. Secondly, with regards to elections, there is an election that is coming up on August the 3rd. That is next Tuesday. Polls open at 7 and they close at 8 p.m. If you would have elected to vote by an absentee ballot, we must have received an absentee ballot completed application from you in order to issue your ballot. Several calls have come into the office that people are not receiving their ballots, but they failed to submit an application for those ballots. So ballots are not automatically sent. However, if you're on our permanent absentee voter list, you will receive an application. That application must be completed and submitted back to the clerk's office before we can issue your ballot. The sooner that you return your ballot to us, the sooner we can prepare your ballot for counting on Election Day. So if any of you have voted ballots sitting at home, we ask that you please return those as soon as you are able to do. You may do that in our drop box here at the Township offices. You may do that at our office from 8 to 4:30. Drop box is 24 hours a day. There are no changes. Some people have asked if there are changes to any precinct locations. There are not. Your precinct location is the same as it has been in the November 2020 election. If you have any questions as to where to vote this coming Tuesday, please contact the clerk's office. You may also check our website, and you will see all voting locations will be listed for you with your map, as well as a link to the Secretary of State's website where you can enter your information, and they will give you all of the information regarding your precinct location and number as well. So there are a number of places for you to receive that information. Again, any questions on the upcoming special Senate primary election on this coming Tuesday, August the 3rd, please direct any questions to the Township Clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Berry. Trustee Joseph?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and thank you, Clerk Berry, for the birthday acknowledgement. On a serious note, the HR department here does a really nice job of recognizing each other's birthdays, and in the township, it's not uncommon to see, you know, so-and-so's birthday, and it's a very nice work environment for no additional cost to the taxpayer. And thanks to the HR department for, you know, making sure that people are recognized on their day and extending it up here to the board. So I appreciate that very much. Just one report from the library board. As the board liaison, I'd like to bring you up to speed on a couple of issues that came up. One, as Clerk Berry mentioned, the library board has asked for a 1 mil ballot proposal, which will be voted on Tuesday, August 3rd. There will be a public meeting held at the library on Wednesday, July 28th, tomorrow, at 6:30 p.m. to answer any questions residents may have about the library's August 3rd ballot proposal. The other item, the library's free summer enrichment program will present a circus among us at Pollard Park on Wednesday, August 4th from 11 to noon, and will delight families of all ages with daring feats and comedic skits. Trustee Mink, I think you'll be out there doing some type of performance. I don't know the full itinerary, but I understand you'll be out there. So thank you for participating in that. And lastly, I just wanted to acknowledge the library board. Independent of where you are as it relates to the millage, I'd like you to know that the library board members who work very, very hard deserve some credit. They put a lot of energy and a lot of effort into that, and I'd like to acknowledge them, as I did at their board meeting last week. Library Board President Myrnie Bell, Vice President Annette Goike, Secretary Heather Morrison, Treasurer Stephen Baux, Trustee Troy Cunningham, and Trustee Megan Rock. They really have put a lot of energy into bringing forward the best possible library that they can, and their work is really remarkable, and I give them a lot of credit. Also wanted to lastly point out that the board did extend Library Director Madsen's contract through December of 2022. She has been on a year-to-year contract extension, and the board met last week to extend that. They have complete faith in Ms. Madsen's leadership, and having worked on the board a bit, I can see why. So it really is a great group over there, and I appreciate them very much. So thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Trustee Joseph. No further comments from the board. Move on to item 7, consent agenda.
All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on the consent agenda items are permitted. 7A, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of July 13th, 2021. 7B, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department.
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Trustee Vosberg,
Second.
Second by Clerk Berry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, passes. Item 8, public hearing.
Item 8A is to conduct a public hearing to review the special assessment roll and to hear any objections thereto for the proposed Killewald Gravel Road Maintenance Special Assessment District Number 161.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Demink, supported by trustee Vosberg. Comments from the public?
That's to open the meeting.
Oh, I'd
Open the public hearing.
like to open the public hearing.
That's,
Got to vote first,
I'm
sir.
sorry. All those in favor?
aye.
All those opposed? Open the public hearing. Comments from the floor? Motion to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
So moved.
Clerk Berry, support trustee Vosberg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Close the public hearing for item 8A, the regular agenda, item 9A.
Item 9A is to adopt Resolution 2021-21, Number 5, for the Killewald Gravel Road Maintenance Special Assessment District, SAD, confirming the special assessment role and providing for collection in annual installments for a 3-year period.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Support.
Motion to approve by trustee Joseph, support by trustee Vosberg. Comments? Comments from the director?
I'm here to answer any questions assessing might have. If the board has anything to ask, I'm here to answer questions.
There's no discussion from the board.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9B.
Item 9B is to set a public hearing for the August 24th, 2021 regular Township Board meeting at 7 p.m. to hear comments concerning the estimate of cost to provide police and fire protection as determined by the Township Board, and also on the distribution of the special assessment levy for said police and fire protection.
So moved.
Motion by trustee Anderson, support by trustee Demink. Discussion? Discussion from the floor? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9C.
Item 9C is to approve a request to adopt Resolution Number 2021-24, a resolution of support for Michigan Townships Association Robert R. Robinson Scholarship applicant Nedra Hall, a Wayne State University graduate student and Chesterfield Township resident.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Support.
Treasurer Elliott, motion to approve, support by trustee Joseph. Discussion? Deputy Clerk Grenia, do you have comments? None? Any comments from the floor? None? Clerk Berry?
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9D.
Item 9D is to approve the introduction and first publication of ordinance amendment number 192, Land Division Regulations.
Good evening, honorable board members. Tonight, a Assessor Boubet and I bring to you amendments to Chapter 58 Land Division. Most of the changes that I've presented to you have to do with proposed questions that we received from General Code in our recod. This particular chapter was not in the presentation I made to you back in October. We knew there were going to be a couple of major changes, and we wanted to bring them to you all at one time. The attorney has drafted this, and it has been reviewed. My changes mostly have to do with cleaning up. The first changes regarding referring to the Planning Enabling Act, which was adopted in 2008, rather than the prior act, which was from 1959. There's a couple of changes where we have to change the reference from 5822, which is the filing section, to 5826, which is a procedural thing. And the one somewhat major change that we have that came from the General Code suggestions, we are now going to, instead of comment on the direct amount of money things will be costing in this, we are going to refer to it being noted in a fee adoption schedule that will be done once a year by the Township Board. And I'm going to now turn it over to Assessor Boubet to refer to her changes.
Thank you. I have two changes in subsection 1.6, Chapter 58, Article 9, and there is a red line. Everyone received that on their desk. There was a red line change, and the word if was added, so you all have those in your packet. Those were included for that change. On page 3, we also have a change in the paragraph subsection 1.8 for the land. We're adding that language in the packet. These requests to change have all been approved by the attorney, and they do not conflict with the current ordinance. So we're requesting those for change.
Thank you. Discussion from the board. Trustee Bosworth.
Thank you. Just clarify if I understood you right. The agenda that we have received and reviewed is what we are approving with the change on this sheet. Because Ms. Greenie had mentioned making changes, but those changes were reflected in our agenda packet.
Correct.
Yeah, that is correct. The amended
The
agenda.
amended one, yep, that would be the one that you would be voting on.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you, Trustee Vosberg. Any further comments from the board? Do I have a motion to approve item 9D as read?
Supervisor, could I speak?
Oh, I apologize, Mr. Gendernelli, please. Comments from the public?
Should I think we should have a motion before we accept comments.
Motion and accept comments, correct, sir?
Yeah. So, yes, I'll clean it up. Do I have a motion to approve item 9D as stated?
Motion to approve the
Support.
introduction and first publication of ordinance amendment number 192.
Have a motion from Clerk Berry, support from Trustee Vosberg. Discussion from the public. Mr. Gendernelli.
Yes, thank you, Gary Ginnerlich, 52624 Laurel Oak Lane, Chesterfield. I've reviewed this and I have a few comments. And the first page, which is page 44 from your agenda jacket, says that it can't be more than 3 times the width to depth ratio. But the Land Division Act, since you're making changes in section MC 560.109, parent small b, says that as a matter of course you can have a depth to width ratio of not 4 times the width. And so my thought is that if you're changing this, make it to the 4 versus the 3, because in the new proposal, you do have a provision, which I think is a step in the right direction, as to if a person's denied at the assessing department their splits, that they can go to the ZBA and ask for a variance. But if you have it from the beginning at 4, you'll have less people, in my opinion anyways, from my experience, asking for variances when you have that provision which is consistent with the Land Division Act. And I do have a handout that shows some typical dimensions. Is it okay to hand these out to you?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Clerk.
Because in your ordinance, if you don't have water or city sewer or township water or sewer, generally you have to have a 1 acre minimum anyway. So I give you calculations as to the 1 acre provision, which is 43,560 square feet in an acre. And a lot of times when property owners are wanting to do divisions and splits, it's with reference to properties that don't have water or have water but not city sewer. So you still have to go to the public health department to get your septic field approved, and generally you got to have a minimum of 1 acre to meet that requirement, so that if you don't have water and you don't have city sewer, that there's a separation on your property between where your well is and where your septic is. So that's one thing that I'd like you to consider. And then on page 3, which is page 47 of the docket, once again it says 3 times the width. There I think you should make the modification to make it 4 times versus 3. And then on page 47 in paragraph 1.8, part 6, it says an applicant who is aggrieved by a denial or other action pursuant to Article Roman numeral 5 may appeal to the Township ZBA. This is my thought. Rather than saying Article 5, I think that should say paragraph 1.5, because when you look farther into the ordinance in the beginning, it doesn't make reference to articles. It has paragraphs, and 1.5 is the provision versus Article 1. And then in the red line version, which is page 51, likewise, I would say that, you know, there should be a consistency. And then when you go to page 61, in that paragraph C at the top, it once again talks about the 3-to-1 ratio. And
Mr. Gendon, I don't want to interrupt you, but this is just the first reading. Obviously, we'll take what you're presenting to us and take it back to zoning and planning and address these issues that you're raising.
okay.
This is just the first reading of it.
Yeah, but if you don't bring these things to your attention, there's not going to be many people speaking on this issue. So I just have one more comment. Then on page 61, in that one, the paragraph C at the end, where it says a parcel in excess of 10 acres must comply with the frontage requirement, I think that's counter to the Land Division Act that says if you're over 10 acres, you don't have to comply with those provisions. And I have clients that have frontage less than what the frontage would require, but has a stub street running to their property. So those are my comments for your consideration. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments? I'll bring it back up to the board. There was a motion by Clerk Berry, supported by Trustee Vosberg. Madam Clerk?
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee DeMink.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott. Aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 9E. Clerk Berry?
Item 9E is to approve a recommendation by Public Works to purchase meters and meter components from Ferguson Water Works at a total cost of $23,075.78 from GL number 591-542-740-000.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, sir.
Motion to approve, Trustee Domingue, second.
Support.
Trustee Anderson, discussion? Director Johnson, please.
Yes, good evening. So this is our typical meter component order that we have. This one was a little bit more than normal because typically beginning of July, price increases for meters occurs. So thankfully Ferguson was able to honor this, even though it got pushed to meeting, they're able to honor the price still. But currently 1-inch meters were going up by $30 per meter. 2-inch meters were going up $107 a meter. Compounds $150 a meter, a 2-inch compound. So Typically, there's a significant increase in meters every year. That's the way of brass and things of that nature. So we wanted to make sure we did an extra order just to make sure we got the cheaper pricing for these meters. So we kind of bumped up our normal order is about 31-inch meters, and we just added another 20 so we can keep get them for the better price. This year so far for 1-inch meters, we've installed 130 so far this year. We only have 20 on hand, and we like to try to at least have 30, so in case developers are requesting water service, we have plenty on hand because, as you guys may know, sometimes these things are going up fast, and we have to push meters out pretty quick. So that was the reason for the, I guess, extra meter because of the price increase was so drastic. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any comments from the board? Questions? Any comments from the public? Comments from the public? I have a motion by trustee Demink, second by trustee Anderson to approve item 9E. Clerk Berry?
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Item 9F.
Item 9F is to approve a recommendation by Public Works to participate in the cost share agreement with the Macomb County Department of Roads to improve the intersection of 26 Mile Road and County Line Road at an estimated cost of $103,470 from GL number 101-446-970000.
Do I have a motion to approve item 9F?
Mr. Supervisor, also I apologize. Accompanying this item is a request to approve a budget amendment to GL number 101-446-970000, increasing the budget from $156,915 to $260,385.
Do I have a motion to approve item 9F as stated?
Motion to approve.
Second. Discussion from the board?
Thank you. I made the motion and Supervisor Kersten just seconded that motion a moment ago.
Yes.
So it's open for discussion.
Discussion from the board. Discussion from the board. Trustee Joseph.
Yeah, just first, I don't know, it's not a huge issue. First, I would just like to point out, in the executive summary, the request, yeah, it's 103, and it's also referenced as 104. So I'm not sure, in the executive summary, the additional upgrades to the intersection are currently $104,470. So I'm not sure which one. Secondly, the introduction of this agenda item indicates the request for the Public Works participation in this cost share agreement in essence was an oversight of some type, and the language that's in here indicates that correspondence in 2019 with the previous supervisor indicated that there was a traffic signal upgrade that was no additional cost to the township, and that's simply not true. The agreement that was signed by the supervisor then indicates that there is not only a signal improvement, but also structural improvements, that there were road improvements there. There was correspondence with neighboring communities that were impacted where resolutions were passed by those municipalities, and the original agreement indicates that before any work would be started, there has to be an approval process, and the money's guaranteed. I don't know why we would come in years after the project was apparently approved, and it sounds now as there's actually bills being presented. Went back, as I say, in November 26th of 2019, we request that improvements include both physical improvements and signalization. So that wouldn't require an agreement signed by our supervisor if there was no cost. There's no cost, just there's signals. So what do they need our signature up to put in traffic signals that belong to the road commission? You come in 2 years later saying, oh, by the way, you agree to pay us $103,000 as your share. What obligates us to this? Because it's the work's already been completed. And the supervisor signed an agreement that doesn't have anything to do with any monies, and it never came to the board. What is it about this that obligates, and why are we bringing it forward with a discussion about an oversight involving, we didn't know it was roads? We clearly knew it was roads. We never authorized it. And I don't know what our legal obligation is to this project, and why we're taking $100 and some thousand and making a budget amendment, and the residents are paying for something that they never voted on. And I think that's inappropriate. And I don't even know how, unless I guess the board approves it retroactively, how it's even legal. But I guess with the board's approval, we guess we could. But could we get some clarification on that, Mr. Supervisor?
Yes, Director Johnson, please.
Yep, thank you. So I spoke with the project manager for this intersection from the county, and what they told me was back in 2019, the sole intent of that project was strictly the improvements of the light itself. There's going to be a left turn signal, nothing more. That was the intent. So there was no cost to any of the townships that were neighboring whatsoever. So there was zero cost, is my understanding. After the fact, I guess through this period, at some point, they decided to add right turn lanes and expand the intersection, which is going to incur a cost, which the emails that were dated in 2019 did not express, because those emails only expressed a upgraded light, nothing more. In that process of doing these turn lanes and such, the person who was in charge of the cost share agreement retired, and somehow that ball on their end got dropped. So the project got, it's getting constructed or being prepared to be constructed, and then as they sent us invoices for the sum of about $3,000, we called them and said, what is this pertaining to? Lo and behold, they forgot to do this cost share agreement, so we were like, we can't pay these bills without township board approval. My understanding was they did not contact any other community. Nobody knew about these costs until we kind of brought it to their attention. So once they got this sent out, or figured out, they sent a cost share agreement to all the surrounding communities, and at that point now we were all aware. So that at that point, we're bringing it to the board based on our knowledge of the cost of our portion, which is going to be a right turn lane that's going to be included on 26 Mile Road, and a small expansion of county lines south of 26, because they're adding turn lanes and such there, and a left turn lane. So, and then here we are today.
Mr. Supervisor, just to follow up, if I may, just to get clarification on it.
Yes.
Whoever that is, somebody's not being truthful, because there were agreements signed by neighboring municipalities. Costs were clearly identified. There was a 75%, 25% cost share agreement between the counties, and then the local municipalities within those counties were obligated to pay a portion. So this idea that it was never intended to cost anybody anything, and now all of a sudden the notices just went out, is not true. Because we have, I have, and I think you have it as well, St. Clair County passed a resolution approving their portion of the costs. So this idea that the costs were unknown in 2019 is simply not true. They knew the cost. Lennox Township also had a resolution that was signed by their board approving their share of this project. I have the resolutions, and I think you do too. They can't have a resolution passed by other communities in 2019 and then in 2021 say, oh, we just realized that there was going to be a cost associated with this, and now we're sending out invoices. Some communities were well aware and passed resolutions by their board, as we should have, to appropriately approve this expenditure. So I'm not satisfied with that answer at all, because the costs were known in 2019, and we have signed documentation from neighboring communities with an exact match of the costs that you're saying are just discovered today. So clearly, somebody knew the cost. Many people knew it, but the residents of Chesterfield didn't, and that's not fair. So I'll yield. Mr. Supervisor, I know Trustee Vosberg has some.
Thank you, Trustee Joseph. Trustee Osborne.
Thank you. I have a question, Mr. Supervisor, to our counsel, Attorney Siebert. This is not a state road, is it? This is, too many microphones on. Is this Public Act 51 money that the Department of Roads would be using? Do you know?
I don't. What I know is Kevin had sent me a copy of a 2-page cost-sharing agreement and asked me to look at it. I've seen this agreement in other communities. It's very simplistic, to be kind, but it's the same one they use in all the communities where there's a cost share. That is the sum total of my history of this project. But, you know, for $103,000, you know, you might want to table this, have Kevin get me all the documentation from the beginning of this construction until today, and let me take a look at it and see whether or not you've got any legal obligation to pay this.
Well, okay. That was going to be something, the next thing I was going to ask, because I'm not interested in tabling if we're going to just vote it down.
Well,
Because
before you vote it down, you better make sure you got a decent legal position.
Okay, so that was why I
don't
was
know if
asking
you do
you
or
these
not.
questions. Okay, but do we, townships technically are not obligated to pay for any road work unless we ask to be part of it, correct? Or
That's
not?
correct. You don't
Okay.
own roads. You don't, you know, there's county roads, there's no such thing as a township road.
Correct. So when you're saying, are we obligated, that would just be, were there other communications or decisions
yes.
made that maybe we're not aware of that we
I
need
don't,
to be
I don't
aware
know
of?
I don't know the writings which predate the agreement that I saw. The one I saw, of course, is a draft that's unsigned. But I don't know what preceded that agreement and whether or not there were communications back a year ago or a year and a half ago, whether in writings between the, you know, board members, supervisors. I don't know any of that. But, you know, contracts are not always limited to just signed pieces of paper that said agreement at the top. The contracts can be formed by communications back and forth with people that have apparent authority to bind their clients. I don't know what the history is, but I'd caution you against just saying no. There's no downside to kicking it for another meeting until we look at it, because if you say no and it turns out that there is documentation which supports the county's position, then we're in a bad spot.
Okay.
And it would be better to get it right.
Right, that's probably good advice. But I also wanted to clear, we're not,
No.
other than some other
You don't
agreement
have to
that
put a
might be out
dime,
there.
no,
we're
you don't
not-
have to put a dime into a county road.
Correct.
Unless you decide you want to.
Right, thank you. Mr. Supervisor, I would like to make a motion to,
We'll go back to Clerk Berry. She made the original motion. I think she would like to address it.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I would withdraw the previous motion and make an additional motion to postpone this item until the August 24th Township Board meeting, which would give a month. Would that be sufficient, Council?
Yeah, that's more than enough time. I'm sure Kevin can get me the backup documents.
Would that be
and I'll look
sufficient?
at them ASAP.
Very good.
I will support the amended motion made by Clerk Berry to delay this until August 24th and let council look at it.
Supervisor.
I made, I withdrew my original motion and then made the additional motion to postpone.
And I'll second that amended motion.
Supervisor?
Trustee Wing.
I agree with the tabling it. We all know, especially Mr. Anderson and I, we discussed before, it's a bad intersection, but with this information coming forward, I believe, since we didn't know about it and there's only a traffic signal, I think it's a good idea and we'll let legal look at it, so I'm in favor of tabling it.
Thank you, Trustee Demink. Thank you, Trustee Demink. Any comments from the public? Any further comments from the board? Clerk Berry, call the roll.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I
Trustee
just have a quick question for council. First, I appreciate the suggestion and the discussion. You mentioned correspondence between individuals who may be acting on behalf and the accumulation of all the documents, maybe emails associated with this and so forth. One of the things that concerned me was the correspondence and the initial agreement that was signed by the supervisor has some follow-up documentation that addresses as requested, things of that nature. As you requested, we are moving forward with type language. Would that entangle us at that point, or would it be sort of seen as we probably are obligated at that point?
You know, Dave, I don't want to guess on it. You know, like I tell clients, the facts matter, and I want to see the language. I want to see what, if there were any subsequent communications to a signed agreement, who said it, what they said, what the contents of the writing were. It matters, and I don't want to speculate on what may have been done. But again, if Kevin can get me a packet of documents, I'll have an answer for you, you know, in a couple of days.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I have a motion by Clerk Berry to, second by Supervisor Kersten to delay this until August 24th. Clerk Berry, call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Supervisor Kersten.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 9G, Clerk Berry.
Item 9G is to consider a request from Redwood Living to conditionally rezone parcel 09-23-101-007 from A1 agricultural to RM1 multiple family residential.
Do I have a motion to approve item 9G as stated? Prior to that, Jonathan, do you want to make a presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Yeah, this item was in front of the Planning Commission for a public hearing. They went through several meetings requesting to rezone the old driving range property on 23 Mile Road from A1 agricultural to RM1 multifamily. They did provide some conditions on the rezoning. The conditions are specific to the product of Redwood, which the board should be familiar with from the past meeting. This one's different as it's a rezoning request. But as I said, I did have a couple of meetings with the public hearing open, one of them being virtual, one of them being in person. The Planning Commission is recommending to the board that they deny this rezoning request based on it not being consistent with the master plan.
Two sisters, and then Tyler is here on behalf of Redwood, and one spokesman from Redwood. We want to give you some handout, and Patricia's a little slow getting up here because she's got a bad foot. One of my clients is here. The other sister is in the hospital. She has MS and some other problems. So Patricia would like to make a few comments, then Tyler, then myself. And the bottom line is, some of the information that was in your agenda packet didn't include information that Redwood had submitted at the Planning Commission. So we think due process and a fair process, dictates that the matter should be tabled so that you have an opportunity to review what was submitted, and then at your next meeting, we would make a more formal presentation. And then, Patricia?
A little slow, broken foot.
Too much soccer.
Patricia Ricosi with Redwood, 7007 East Pleasant Valley Road, Independence, Ohio. That's our corporate office. In like a meeting prior, my colleague, Emily Engelhardt, did a very extensive presentation on who Redwood is. And what I would like to do tonight is just kind of like go back through like high points on that and explain to you why we think this is a very good rezoning for this area. This project would have 136 units. All of our units are, or homes are 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. That's all we do. Slab on grade, and we, at this point, we have plus 105 neighborhoods in 10 states, 13,000 units, and growing. What we have found with Redwood is that we have a niche. And the niche is that not everyone wants to own a home, but they want to live in a home. And that's what Redwood provides. I have been with Redwood building neighborhoods since 2005. I am proud of what we do. We give neighborhoods and apartment homes to people that not necessarily want to live in a home, but we're all maintenance free. We take care of everything. So all of our residents everything is maintenance free. We take care of the snow. We take care of landscaping. We take care of everything. And since 2005, I will tell you that when I first started with Redwood, we were just in Northeast Ohio. And now we're in 10 states. And it's because, again, we fill a niche. And I'm proud of what we do with Redwood. We want to be in Chesterfield, and I will tell you this. The majority of the people that will, if you give us a privilege of bringing a neighborhood into Chesterfield, they already live here. Our demographics tell us that the majority of all our residents, whether it's in Montville Township, Ohio, or in Macomb Township, wherever, live already within 3 to 5 miles. So when we build a neighborhood in Chesterfield, the people already are living here. They're going to sell their homes. They're going to move in, perhaps, but we fill a niche. And we want to be in Chesterfield because we think that we can give a middle housing, if you will, that you don't already have. Again, my colleague, Emily Engelhardt, I think it was like last month, did a very great presentation on who Redwood is. And tonight we want to talk about rezoning a parcel. Even though it might not be agreed to, it makes sense. And so at this point, I'm here for questions. And I'll turn it over to Tyler to talk about why it makes sense to rezone this particular parcel. And again, we're here for questions. Thank you.
Tyler Tennant from Daughter Man, attorney for Redwood on this matter. We have supplied the board with 3 documents this evening that were not in the package that you received. 2 of the documents are rather lengthy. They were provided to the Planning Commission before they made their recommendation, and for some reason they didn't make it in your packet, but they're very important because what they do is they respond point by point in a very methodical fashion to every point that was raised by the planning staff, by the Planning Commission, and by the outside planners. And within that package, we prepared and we went out and hired outside consultants, a planner named Carmine Arventini, Sharon Woods, who are both well-regarded consultants. Mr. Arventini is a planner, works for many municipalities in the area. He wrote a report that says that this project is consistent with your master plan, that it provides the missing middle, and establishes and meets the goals of your master plan with respect to the missing housing middle. Also, Sharon Woods is a well-regarded market analyst. She has, in her report, indicated that this particular site is not suitable for commercial and is not suitable for anything other than low-density residential, which is what this is. And I should, in the big picture, and we have a full-blown presentation, which we can do at the next meeting, because I would like for all of you to have time to review the materials, but your master plan indicates that this particular property is meant for C2, C3, or C4 type of development. Within the C4 development is high-rise urban residential, which would include a high-rise apartment building. That is not what we are proposing. These are single-story, basically fourplexes. And so it would be a lot less dense than what the C4 designation stands for. So you'll see in the materials how we weave in that particular concept. We think there's plenty of support for you to say yes to this development because it is consistent with the master plan. It looks like there weren't any comments in particular regarding our site plan, but we do have to come back for site plan approval. This is not, this is a conceptual plan that we have, and it's certainly going to be changed if we get to the site planning stage. But I did hand out, the third document is a one-page site plan, which adjusts the roads from the Redwood development to align with the roads across 23 Mile Road. And I won't spend much more time. I know that Mr. Genderlinick, who is the attorney for the sellers, wants to talk briefly about his client's plight in their inability to market the property on a commercial basis. Thank you.
Gary Genderlinick on behalf of the two Mancini sisters. Their grandmother and grandfather started this. They bought it like in 1923. Across the street was the Falskys farm. They farmed it for years. It was a vegetable stand. There's no longer a market for that type of activity. One time in the past, the township gave them a ticket because they had a big statue out in front. They said it was too tall. I represented them on that, and we got it resolved, and the statue disappeared, Paul Bunyan. But the two sisters, one's ill. They're no longer physically capable of running the driving range. Since my involvement, I said, look, we should modify the site plan a little bit to line up the entrance, the main entrance to D.W. Seaton, so that changes the configuration a little bit. And we would ask that you table it, and between now and your next meeting, I'll give you a written summary of some other historical information as to this property and adjacent properties and the inability to have a 25-acre commercial development on this particular site. So we would ask that you table it to your next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Genderlinick. Based on the information presented and from the applicant tonight, I'll entertain a motion to table this item till the August 10th, 2021 agenda to permit the board time and opportunity to consider the additional information that has been provided here tonight. So moved. Support, or motion support by Trustee Joseph.
Second. Motion by
Clerk
Joseph.
Berry. Further discussion from the board. Trustee Domingue.
When this was in front of Planning Commission, I'm the liaison to planning. There was a public hearing held. It was quite lengthy public hearing. There was a lot of discussion from people on the Rosemary, the street behind it. The Planning Commission is made up of residents of this township. I'm the only elected official on there, so it's just residents. So they have no political ties or anything like that. And they voted after hearing Redwood's presentation after Mr. Rod Arroyo, who's our planner from Gifts Webster, that this is not part of the master plan and that this zoning does not fit here. And it was a unanimous vote to deny the rezoning. I think the board probably saw that in the notes that came through with the stuff, but I just want to advise the other board members, when this did go through, Jonathan, if you want to add any more, he was there. It was a quite lengthy discussion, public hearings and that, but the planning commission was a unanimous decision to deny the rezoning for this piece.
Thank you, Trustee DeMing. Trustee Joseph?
I just had a question about the planning commission. I noticed in the packet, we had information indicating that Mr. Arroyo advised the board on the onset that this was not consistent with the master plan, and that in essence it would require a vote of the board to grant the exception to the master plan. And my question was, was the information packet that was just distributed to the board part of the articles of consideration for the planning commission at the time of your vote? In essence, did it make it to you and just didn't make it to us in the
To the best of my recollection, this all went to planning. Jonathan, can you?
Yeah, I would have to double check with our file.
Just excuse me a minute, Jonathan. Just a point of information. I understood this is a motion to table,
Correct.
which is not debatable. There's no more.
Correct.
Close this down, but
Okay. With that being said,
we can change the motion.
pardon me?
Like, whatever.
The motion was to table until August 10th, 2021, by Trustee Joseph and supported by Clerk Berry.
Can you withdraw that motion if they want to discuss? And I don't know, I'm asking.
No, I'm content to take the vote now. I can ask my question of you offline. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
No.
Trustee DeMink.
No.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer Elliott.
No.
Supervisor Kersten.
Aye. Item 10, addendums. There are no addendums. Item 11, public comments. There is a 5-minute comment limit from the board, or from the public.
I represent Rob Carrick. He owns the corner industrial piece. I'm meeting Thursday morning with the road commission people on site as to the configuration of the right turn lane. I think originally this started out just being a signal change. Given the nature of the intersection, as Mr. DeMink indicated, there's been a few accidents there over years and fatalities. So they're trying to make it a little bit better than just changing the lights. And they're probably going to acquire part of Mr. Carrick's property in order to widen it and have the appropriate drainage. So that's just some background.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public?
My name is Joe Kadich, live at 32825 Sutton Road. I missed the last meeting when everybody had the debate as to whether to eliminate public input to any of your discussions on the agenda beforehand or public comments. I watched the meeting. I was home ill. I watched the meeting on television, not television, on the computer, and I tried to send in a comment that you used to be able to do when you had the remote meetings. The site wasn't available, so I couldn't do anything. I appreciate everybody else that was here commenting on it. The next day, I called the clerk's office to find out if I just missed where the site was to present my comments, and talked to 2 or 3 people, and they, around the office, talked about it, and then finally decided, well, it must have been eliminated, which was before you took the vote to reduce the comments at the regular meetings. Clerk Berry, as usual, wasn't at the office, so they couldn't ask her what was going on. But that happened before you took the vote. As I listened to everybody's comments, the thing that came out to me was that basically everybody on this board is either too arrogant or too busy or doesn't want to hear public input. That proved out. Fortunately, you saved at least 3 minutes during the public agenda, but I had experienced that prior to that, and that's what the pictures I sent out was. When you had the meeting approving the planning for the sidewalk from the south side of the Salt River Bridge to Sutton, I came to that meeting, I looked at the plans, and I sat up here and I said, you've got some safety issues here that aren't being considered in this plan. And basically, I was told then that you had already discussed it amongst yourself, and there was no discussion on this. So you went ahead, spent, I think, probably $300,000 without listening to anybody's input. And the pictures I put out, I wish I had had a thumb drive I could have put on so you could put it on the screen. But basically what you ended up paying $300,000 for is when that bridge is completed, coming off the south end, you almost fell into the drainage ditch because there was no protection. It was probably about a 14 or 15-foot drop. And then people would get around that, and they'd walk on the shoulder of the road, which was about 5-foot shoulder. You look at this picture, I didn't get to where it comes off the bridge, but I don't see anything at the coming off the bridge that protects them falling out. And the highway, or the sidewalk you brought, is within 2 feet of the highway. That's what I tried to bring out, that this was not a safe item when you look at it. And this, the only thing that's different now is that the cones along the highway aren't there. But you've got people coming down Jefferson Avenue and people walking on a sidewalk, and it's only 8-foot wide sidewalk. On the other side of the road is a 10-foot sidewalk. Basically, that's what you got. Hopefully, somebody's going to come through and put some type of guardrail along there. But even so, it leaves you with problems. When it snows and they plow the road, where's the snow going to go? It's going to go on the walkway. When it rains, it's all going to drain to the walkway. You set this up, didn't want to listen to anybody, and that's what you're missing out by cutting off input from the public. I've been going to these meetings for about 6 years. I've never, ever seen anybody come up here for self-gain, trying to get you people to do something that it was beneficial to them. Most of the time, in fact, all the time, it was for people that were looking out for the public interest. I think you did a disservice. I think it's a terrible thing to do. And I hope to hell you turn around and look at this and decide maybe you should extend the courtesy of listening to people and responding back, too. Now, you just had the 3-minute input. We had these people here probably 15 minutes. Nobody said a word to them about their time was up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kadich. Any further comments from the public? Bring it back up to the board. Board comments, Trustee Domingue?
I don't have any tonight. I'm good, thanks.
Trustee Vosper?
No comments tonight.
Treasurer Elliott?
I have no comments tonight.
Trustee Anderson?
Thank you. The only comment I have is on the rezoning request that was the last item on our agenda tonight. I believe we should have voted on it instead of adjourning or waiting another 2 weeks. Planning, So they did their homework, they had the information, they voted against it, and I'm just one of 7 here. I believe we should have addressed it and voted on it again tonight. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'll start where Trustee Anderson left off. I do like the fact that our Planning Commission worked so hard to bring that master plan together. And as we've discussed at previous board meetings, it's a pretty comprehensive plan, but it's not, written in stone. There are opportunities potentially for the board to look at unique projects that maybe capture the spirit of the master plan. And I think I don't think that it's beyond review. I really do think that Mr. Arroyo's position, which was changing the master plan, requires input from the board. That is the procedure. So it is appropriate when a petitioner has a project that they think captures the spirit of the master plan, and maybe not every element of that particular parcel, but in total matches the spirit of what we're trying to do as a community. And we have an obligation, I think, to look at those, and I have zero problem with it, which is a bit different than Mr. Anderson's position, and I certainly respect that. But I was thoroughly impressed with the Redwood people when they came in a few board meetings ago and did some research after the board meeting, and I feel confident that any community they go into, they enhance. So when they come back for a second bite at the apple and say, there's some things that we think could benefit your community, I want to listen, and I want to hear. And so that's why I agreed with Mr. Gendron-Aleck's request and the board motion to table that and give this a second look, and I'm okay with that. Secondly, the issue raised by the speaker, Mr. Kadish, came up and he talked about it really is something I don't want to beat to death, but this APO that we have with regard to board rules, he's exactly right. Mr. Gendron-Aleck initially spoke on an item earlier in the agenda. He is very informative, and I enjoy, I always feel like I learn something when he goes to the podium, but an application of the APO would have required us to cut him off. He wasn't saying anything derogatory. In fact, he was bringing, information to the board, so we just allowed that to continue. But procedurally, it's not appropriate if what we're really saying is that we're censoring content. That was the argument that we had last week, our last board meeting, when we talked about the APO and the move from 5 minutes to 3 minutes, is that we were trying to make sure that we had a behaved speaker at the podium. And I think the case is made tonight that's exactly what happened. When we are listening to somebody that we feel is providing us, and I think it should be universal. I would like to allow every member of the community or anybody that leaves their home and comes to that podium and wants to share something with me, even if it's, hey, Joseph, I think you were wrong. I want to hear that too. Because the more people that participate, the better government we have. And selective enforcement leaves us in a bad position when we come to somebody that says, you're really violating your own rules and the Open Meetings Act because you allow certain people to speak at certain times. So when this agenda item comes forward again, as it relates to the Redwood, I'd like to see it on the agenda as a presentation, not necessarily a motion where the board approves and then it goes to the public, because the Redwood people clearly have something to say here. So I'd like to see it as an opportunity for a presentation rather than a resident or podium comment procedurally. Again, I'm going to just wait, Mr. Supervisor. I know that you're doing a great job as the chair of these meetings and can get a little bit confusing, but it flowed tonight, although procedurally there were many times when we were not procedurally correct. And so when I questioned Trustee Demink and then there was a point of order on that, technically that was correct, but I don't know when we're going to decide, when we're going to apply the APO as it relates to board rules and when we're just going to let it go. And it's hard for me from a rules standpoint. I can play by whatever rules we have, but they seem to change, and I'd like them to be consistent. As it relates to the 26-mile construction project, I heard Mr. Gendernalik addressed it, saying that he represents, and this idea that it was originally traffic is a resounding theme, and I don't know when somebody says originally how far they're going back pre-2019, but we have documentation that says the leader of this community in 2019 thought that this was a good idea, and there is correspondence that talks not only about traffic signals, but by structural changes to the road. There were dollar amounts that were approved in other communities, and I don't understand why it didn't come back to the board initially with exactly the same way that Supervisor Kersten emailed us as it relates to the 23-mile road problem. We've had resident after resident call us individually and have come to the podium trying to traverse 23-mile road in front of the Meyer and near the railroad tracks is, really a difficult journey. People are having significant damage to their vehicles. And what we were told previously was that's a county road, there's nothing we can do, and it's not slated for repair until 2024. We heard that repeatedly. And that's not true. There is always something we can do when we go to the county and we advocate on behalf of the residents. And Supervisor Kersten has engaged in that dialogue, and there's always something that you can do. And one of the things that we could do is partner with them for a short-term fix to get us through 2024. And what does that cost? Well, we don't know, because we had closed the door on conversations with the county, and they are open now. And the thing that I like most, and I think it's important for the public to know, is that instead of a supervisor going into neighboring communities or negotiating with the town, with the county, and all of these other ideas, like wandering around with the township gold looking to buy magic beans and telling nobody, the supervisor here brings the entire board with him. He communicates to the entire board, this is the idea, this is what I would like to pursue, what do you think? Should it be a board action? And that's the appropriate way to do it. That is what I hope we continue to do. And for a better part of 4 years, I heard every single board closing about a legacy. And a legacy, without going into real ugliness, but one of the legacies that I was very fearful of is, as we open the books, what bills are unpaid? We got our first one officially to the tune of $100,000, because we know that somebody from our board was negotiating and talking about an agreement, and nobody else knew about it. Even the department heads who would oversee the project were only alerted to it when the bills started to arrive, and that shouldn't happen. That just simply should not happen. We should be advocating for our residents, not just solely through the supervisor's office, and when he goes out, he takes the whole board with him, and I appreciate that. Then the last comment I wanted to share with you is a lot of discussion about Selfridge, the compatibility study, and the environmental study. There was a 77-page document regarding the environmental impact of certain conditions at Selfridge, and that was distributed to the public. If you didn't see it, I understand why, because nobody I bumped into is even aware that it's out there. But in that document, there was also an opportunity for any member of the public to request a public hearing or submit comments regarding any concerns that they may have. And I wanted you to know that if you were interested, the window has already closed. That needed to be received by July 20th. I did submit a request on behalf of the residents who contacted me that we are interested in hearing from Selfridge to talk about PFAS and other contaminants that are rumored to be leaking and potentially hazardous as it relates to groundwater and neighboring. It's significant because if the operation at the base changes, there are some concerns about what the disturbance of that land could do to potential PFAS that is there. I was advised by Mr. Pash, who is the environmental manager at Selfridge, that he did receive my request and will provide a formal response soon. and I will update the board as soon as I hear from Mr. Pash, and I will look to bring a public hearing, a town hall style hearing, forward as quickly as I can. Thank you.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I'm going to keep my comments brief this evening. Would just like to extend our thoughts and prayers on behalf of myself, and I feel all of our board members will feel the same, to our neighbors to the north in Armada who were affected by the tornado that came through there. I actually was in a position at the time to watch that happen, and it was a pretty scary thing. So I'd like to, I know all of us, our thoughts and prayers are with not only those who suffered property damage. Fortunately, thank God, there were no injuries or fatalities there, but we know that our friends in municipal government up there in Armada, it's difficult for your community right now just to handle getting FEMA in and finding out about funding and all of those sort of things that we know we handle at a municipal level to assist our residents. So thoughts and prayers are with all of you up there, our friends in Armada. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Clerk Berry. Just a few comments. Trustee Joseph, Trustee Anderson, Trustee Demink, the last board meeting, you presented and allowed me the use of a municipal vehicle in the transition phase of me moving from public safety to the supervisor's office. I appreciate that consideration. I have declined its use, and I respectfully decline it moving forward. What I will do, and what I would like to do in the coming months is I'm going to work for a comprehensive municipal vehicle use program. I think it's imperative. I think it's modern. But until that is done, I've declined the use of the public safety vehicle, and it will remain in the public safety department's fleet. But again, thank you for your support and your consideration on that topic. Just a few things that through the week, and again, I'm trying to get up to speed. It's been very busy last month and a half. I have asked HR Director Steve Duchesne to become my deputy supervisor. He agreed to take on that deputy supervisor's role with no additional compensation. It's all within his current compensation package. He is a great asset. His experience is valuable, and he's been a help for me in this transition phase. So I'd like to thank Director Duchesne, and I appreciate his participation in my day-to-day activities. The department head meetings and notes, you have been getting them. I hope they're helpful to you. I think one of the issues is communication and being informed. That is a small step for me, and I think it's important that you receive those all across the board. And my goal is improve communication at all levels constantly. So that's going to be an ever-evolving process. I want to thank the department heads in the department. They've all been very helpful, and they also take part in those weekly and weekly meetings. And again, the goal is to get the information out as quick as we can to you in the most reliable fashion, and they are a huge part of that. Police Chief Public Safety Director update. This is a process that is underway right now, the job description, and we are meeting with the interim chief, Ken Franks. We will bring that compensation or that his compensation package once agreed upon to the board for their approval. Again, we're just refining the move and the transition to me becoming supervisor kind of left some holes that we want to make sure that are filled. And the Public Safety Department is running status quo. So it's very stable, and we will bring that, whatever we are, when we get that agreement in place, we'll bring it to the board for approval. What I wanted to focus on in filling in for Supervisor Accavetti and being supportive of the vision and the paths that he took was more internal systems, more improvements across the board internally, how this building and how this municipality functions. And that's where I've been living in the last 3 weeks particularly, and trying to learn, come up to speed. There are several automated technologies that I think we can institute within the municipal government office that I think are only going to enhance and improve the entire township's operation. And I really look forward, there's been a team approach to that. The department heads appear to be participating, and I'd like to really move that block forward under my watch here in the next 10 to 15 months. We are working on some township hall improvements, and yes, the parking lot is one of them, but this building is in drastic need of modernization along with technology improvements. But this building conceptually hasn't really changed much other than some cosmetic improvements. And it's an assessment that's underway right now with facilities. And I also hope to bring a plan and a direction that we'd like to go in sometime late August, early September for the board to look at and consider. As Trustee Joseph had stated, 23 Mile Road in Gratiot, I did reach out to the Macomb County Road Commission, and again, this was a conversation that the previous Supervisor Akavetti had already entertained. The solution, and I was bombarded almost immediately with phone calls with 23 Mile Road, what are you gonna do with it? Every time I went somewhere, it was, what are you gonna do with 23 Mile Road? It's terrible. What can we do to fix it? No, it's not our road, and that has been clearly stated. But what I did do is reach out to the Director of the Road Commission and ask him what would be a viable solution that may fix it in the short term. That was emailed to you, so if there is some considered action or direction that you'd like to go on that, I would be open to discussing that. It is a short-term fix. That being said, again, it's been an overwhelming last couple of a month and a half. I'm trying to get up to speed. I want to get better at managing these board meetings, and I will continue to work on that. And as previously stated, Trustee Joseph, again, happy birthday, and enjoy your evening. I hope to get you out of here a little bit sooner. So, with that being said, is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion
Support.
to adjourn. Support by Trustee Joseph. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.